Hey everyone. Welcome to AfriHeart Stories, your go-to spot for African tales. Don't forget to like, subscribe and drop a comment. Now sit back and enjoy. The morning began like a race David Okoro hadn't agreed to run. His phone alarm buzzed at 4:45 a.m. By 5, coffee steamed, a white shirt lay ironed on the chair, and the Abuja deck glowed on his laptop like a promise. Today's meeting could unlock the biggest land assembly of his career. Then Amara called. "Are you awake?" she asked, voice soft the way she sounded when she wanted something delicate to land. "I've been awake since 3, he said, snapping the suitcase shut. "Airport by 7. Presentation at 10. We talked about this." "We talked about you," she replied. "Not us." "Amara, please, not this morning." "I checked the card," she said. "Why is there a 45,000 naira hold from a hotel?" "Wedding vendor's briefing," he said. "The hall. Refundable." "So you locked 45 and told me to do my nails with 20? He exhaled. "We agreed to prioritize the pitch. If the contract lands, none of this will be a stretch." "And if it doesn't?" she asked. "You talk like certainty owes you money." "It will land." On her end he heard the hairdryer and the clink of a mug. Those small domestic sounds had become familiar since she moved in. Her slippers in the hallway, her laughter in the sitting room. He loved those things even when they unsettled him. "David," she said, "I'm not careless. I just want to feel secure. Last month you called my hair unnecessary spending. Do you remember?" "I said the timing was off," he answered. "I'm leaving in 20 minutes. "And I'm leaving in 2, she replied. "To the salon, where they treat me like I matter." "Let's not do this," he said. "When I get back we'll sit with the budget." "Oh, so there is money to move." "But there wasn't when I needed it." "You needed 500 for nails." "Gel sculpt with chrome dust isn't just nails, David. It's self-respect." "You're comparing chrome dust to self-respect?" "Maybe I'm comparing being considered to being dismissed," she said, steel under silk. "And your mother agrees with you. Leave mama out of this." "I can't. She's in everything. She asks whether I've learned your favorite soup." "Because she cares. Because she wants to manage me." "I want a partner," Amara added, "not a project manager." David pictured Abuja's glass lobby and Mr. Aid's steady nod. He also pictured Amara in a salon chair, head tilted, a life where she didn't have to negotiate every desire. "Help me land this," he said. "Then we can argue about chrome dust for the rest of our marriage." "We're already arguing," she replied. "And we aren't married yet." He checked the time, 15 minutes until the driver arrived. 10 until he had to lock the door. 5 until the call decided who he would be today. "Amara," he said, "I love you." She took a breath. "I love you too. But love is lemon without sugar when respect is missing." "Are you saying I don't respect you?" "I'm saying I want to be your equal, not the line item you cut." He remembered Chike's laugh last week when the boys joked about budgets. "Guy," Chike had teased, "no woman wants to be a footnote." "Okay," David said. "Send me what you need today." "I already got it," she said quickly. "Nkechi lent me." He froze. "You went to Nkechi before asking me?" "I asked last night. You said the timing was off. So you found timing that was on?" "Yes." Jealousy flashed hot and childish. "Return it. I'll transfer now." "I can't. I've used it." "On what?" "On feeling like I mattered," she said. He stared at the suitcase then away. "I don't like being second option in my own house." "And I don't like being last in yours," she shot back. Lagos outside was waking. The kiki sputter, a hawker calling, "Pure water," a chorus of horns. The city moved. He wasn't sure he could. He typed a message he hated, "Flight delayed. Can we push the presentation 48 hours? I'll share a revised deck today." Mr. Ade replied instantly, "Not ideal. Partners are flying in. Call me." David didn't call. He canceled the driver. The sound of the cancellation felt like a gavel. "Amara," he said, "come home. Let's talk face to face." "I'm already on my way out." "Where?" "To get hair that won't apologize for existing." "We'll talk when you return." "Maybe," she said and ended the call. He stared at Mr. Aid's message again, thumb hovering over call. He imagined the partners checking their watches, Mr. Ade muttering that David was too emotional for a deal this big. Maybe he was. In this life. But losing Amara to resentment felt costlier than losing a meeting. He wandered to the window. Across the courtyard, a boy watered plants with a punctured bucket. When Amara had first moved in, she had laughed at that boy's theatrics and made friends with the Accra woman by the gate within a week. "Home is who knows your order," she had said, handing David a warm paper wrap. He had loved her quickness with people, the way rooms bent toward her without effort. His phone lit again. A message from Mama Ifeoma. "Safe flight, NWM. Pray before you board." He typed, then erased, then sent, "Not going. Talk later." He could already hear her sigh. Mama had warned him to choose a woman whose feet were planted. He had chosen a woman whose wings were bright. At his door, his key slid into the lock and paused. A thin blade of light reached from the hinge across the hallway floor. He frowned. He was sure he'd locked up. He turned the knob. The door moved soundlessly, the way doors move when whoever opened them expected to close them soon. "Amara," he called, stepping inside. A soft laugh floated from the sitting room, light as perfume. A man's baritone answered, warm, at ease, familiar enough to tap recognition inside him. David's heartbeat spiked, quick and bright. He set the keys on the console table, too loudly, and the laughter stopped. From the hallway mirror, his reflection stared back, shirt unbuttoned at the neck, eyes suddenly older. Down the corridor, the air smelled faintly of cologne he didn't own. He could hear the clink of a glass, a low murmur, the hush that follows when people realize they are no longer alone. He reached the doorframe to the sitting room and wrapped his fingers around it to steady his hands. Then he pushed the door. David's eyes adjusted to the soft light pouring into the sitting room from the half-closed curtains. On the sofa, Amara sat angled toward Chike's, his childhood friend. She wore a silky pale pink robe that loosely covered her knees, the sash barely tied. One leg was tucked under her, her arm resting along the back of the couch, so close to Chike's that their elbows almost touched. Chike leaned back casually, one arm draped along the sofa like he owned it. In his other hand, a short tumbler of amber liquid caught the light. His laugh, deep, rolling, filled the room, the kind of laugh David hadn't heard from him in years. Amara's hand rested on Chike's knee. Not in a nervous or fleeting way, but comfortably, like it had been there a while. David's pulse thudded in his ears. Neither noticed him at first. He stood rooted to the doorway, the smell of Chike's cologne, sharp and musky, cutting through the faint scent of Amara's vanilla body cream. When Amara finally saw him, her smile froze. She snatched her hand back like it had touched fire. "David. What's going on?" His voice was low, dangerously calm. Chike's grin didn't vanish entirely. "Guy, you're back early? We were just laughing," David finished, stepping in. "With my fiancée? In my house." Amara's eyes flashed annoyance before softening into something more careful. "Don't be dramatic. We were catching up." David's gaze locked on Chike. "In a robe." Chike lifted his hands, still holding the glass. "Relax. I came to check on her since you've been so busy." "Busy?" David's laugh was short, bitter. "I was working for both of us. So she could have chrome-dusted nails, apparently." "David," Amara began. "No, let him finish," Chike interrupted. "If you treat her like she's last on your list, someone will make her feel first." The sentence hit David like a slap. He stepped forward, fists clenched. "And that someone is you?" Chike stood, a fraction taller, but David's glare didn't falter. "Enough." Amara's voice cracked. "You're blowing this out of proportion. Chike's been my friend too. We were just talking about—" "I don't care what you were talking about," David snapped. "You don't touch my friend like that. And you," he turned to Chike, "you don't come to my house when I'm not around. Ever." For the first time, Chike's smirk thinned. "Maybe you should focus less on who's in your house and more on why she's not happy in it." "That did it?" David pointed to the door. "Out. Now." Chike lingered just long enough to drain the last sip from his glass. Then, without another word, he walked past David, the faint scrape of his shoes loud in the silence. The door clicked shut behind him. David turned back to Amara. "Explain." Her eyes shimmered, but not with guilt, more with defiance. "I told you I felt neglected. I told you I needed more than budgets and meetings. But you dismiss me every time." "Neglect?" David's voice rose. "I've been building a future for us. The contract in Abuja was more important than the argument we had this morning," she cut in. "More important than listening to me. This isn't about listening. This is about respect. You crossed a line." Her chin lifted. "And you've never crossed one? Never made me feel like a burden?" David rubbed his forehead. "We're not doing this right now. Of course we're not. You never do." The silence after Chike left was heavy, the kind that made the tick of the wall clock sound accusatory. David stayed standing while Amara curled deeper into the couch, folding her arms like armor. "Who are you?" he asked finally. "Because the woman I proposed to wouldn't do this." Amara's lips trembled. "The woman you proposed to has been trying to get through to you for months. This isn't getting through. This is betrayal." "Betrayal?" she repeated, eyes narrowing. "Or is it just that I had company you didn't approve of?" David moved to the center of the room, forcing her to look at him. "Don't twist this. You were in my house with my best friend looking like—" He stopped, the words catching in his throat. "Looking like what?" "Like a woman who deserves attention. You had his hand on you." His arm was on the couch. "And your hand was on his knee," David shot back. Her silence was answer enough. "You think I don't notice the way you light up when he's around?" David asked. "Like I'm the placeholder and he's the event." Amara's eyes dropped. "Maybe because he listens without turning everything into a negotiation. Because he wants what's mine," David said. "Always has." She stood abruptly. "I won't sit here and be accused of things I haven't done." "Then prove it." Her voice rose, trembling. "I shouldn't have to prove anything. If you don't trust me, maybe we shouldn't be engaged." The words hit like cold water. David stepped back, chest tight. Maybe we shouldn't. But he didn't mean it. Not yet. The next day, David met Chaik at a roadside bar they used to frequent in university. "You wanted to talk," Chaik said, sipping his beer like they were still friends. "I wanted to know what exactly you think you're doing." "Being a friend," Chaik replied casually. "Friends don't touch each other's fiancés like that. Maybe you're overthinking it." "I saw it. I'm not blind." Chaik leaned forward, lowering his voice. "You've been so wrapped up in your deals, you left her open. I didn't make a move. But I could." David's fists tightened around his glass. "If you try." Chaik smirked. "What? You'll hit me? Lose your temper and prove her point?" David took a deep breath. "Stay away from her. That's the last warning." Chaik raised his glass in mock salute. "We'll see." That evening, David confronted Amara again. "He came to see me," David said. Her brows knitted. "Why?" "To taunt me." She shook her head. "David, you're imagining things. Chaik was just being friendly. I know what I saw. And I know what it looked like. But it wasn't that. You're letting your temper ruin us." He studied her face, searching for cracks in the mask. But her eyes held steady. "Then you won't mind if I keep my eyes open," he said. Amara sighed. "If you're going to spy on me, maybe you don't deserve me. Or maybe I deserve the truth," he replied quietly. She turned away, the conversation unfinished but far from over. It was Saturday afternoon when Nkechi stopped by. She came bearing Puff Puff in a paper bag, her usual excuse for checking in. Amara was in the shower, humming a tune David didn't recognize. Nkechi lingered in the kitchen with David. "How's work?" she asked. "Busy," he replied, cutting into one of the Puff Puff balls. Her eyes softened. "And Amara?" David paused, not sure how much to share. "We've had some disagreements lately." Nkechi leaned against the counter. "I don't want to interfere, but I'd rather you hear it from me than the streets." "What's that supposed to mean?" She lowered her voice. "I've seen her, spending time with someone. A man." David's jaw clenched. "Chaik." Nkechi hesitated, then nodded. "I didn't want to believe it at first. But it's more than friendship." A rush of heat flooded David's chest. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you deserve to know before you make her your wife," Nkechi said. "I'm not saying end it. Just, be careful." The shower stopped upstairs. Nkechi straightened, slipping back into her easy smile as Amara's footsteps descended. David forced himself to smile, but the seed Nkechi planted rooted deep. That night, Amara fell asleep quickly, her breathing slow and steady beside him. David lay still waiting. When he was sure she was deep in sleep, he eased her phone from the nightstand. The screen lit his face in the dark as he scrolled through her messages. Most were harmless: Nkechi, her hairstylist, her cousin in Enugu. But one contact caught his eye: Ada Menswear. He opened the chat. "Miss you today. You'll see me soon. Don't be impatient." The emojis were playful, intimate, and the tone was unmistakably Chaik's. His hand trembled as he scrolled further back. "Last night was worth it." "Shoo, don't put that here." David's stomach churned. He set the phone back exactly as he found it, lay down and stared at the ceiling. Beside him, Amara shifted in her sleep, murmuring something he couldn't make out. He wondered if she was dreaming about him, or about Chaik. 3 days later, David invited both Amara and Chaik to a peace dinner at a trendy restaurant. "I want to put this tension behind us," he said over the phone to Chaik. "Let's start fresh." When they arrived, Amara looked stunning in a green dress that clung to her curves. Chaik, ever confident, wore a tailored blazer and greeted her with a warm smile that lasted just a beat too long. David ordered wine, making light conversation. But he watched them carefully, every glance, every laugh. At one point, Amara brushed something from Chaik's shoulder, her fingers lingering longer than necessary. Later, Chaik told a joke that made her laugh so hard she touched his arm, almost reflexively. David sipped his wine, keeping his face neutral. He wasn't here to start a fight. He was here to observe. And what he saw told him more than words ever could. The following week, Mama Ifeoma paid an unannounced visit. She entered the house with her usual energy, greeting David warmly. Amara came down to say hello, her smile polite but a little strained. After some small talk, she excused herself to make a call upstairs. As soon as she was out of earshot, Mama Ifeoma leaned forward. "My son, something is wrong here." David sighed. "You're not the first to tell me that." Mama's eyes narrowed. "That girl's eyes wander. I saw the way she looked at that man at your friend's birthday party last month." "Chaik," David said flatly. Mama Ifeoma's lips pressed together. "If you marry without loyalty, you will spend your life watching your back. And a man cannot build a house while guarding the door all the time." David nodded, the weight of her words settling heavily. One Thursday evening, David told Amara he had a late meeting. Instead, he parked his car a block from a quiet restaurant near the waterfront. From across the street he saw her arrive. Minutes later, Chaik joined her. They greeted each other like lovers, a quick glance around, then fingers entwined across the table. David stayed in the shadows, phone raised. He snapped photos, her smile, his hand brushing her cheek, the way they leaned in close. He left before they could see him, his heart pounding, the evidence heavy in his pocket. That night he said nothing. But as he lay beside her, listening to her even breaths, he knew something had shifted. This wasn't suspicion anymore. This was proof. And proof demanded action. David's week was already heavy with the weight of what he'd seen, but Friday brought a fresh blow. He was at Mr. Ade's office for a follow-up on a pending real estate deal. As they reviewed documents, Mr. Ade's tone shifted. "By the way," Mr. Ade said, "sorry about the contract." David frowned. "What contract?" "The mainland development pitch," Mr. Ade replied. "Your friend Chaik came in last week with a polished proposal. Very similar to the one you shared with me in January." David's chest tightened. "Chaik?" "Yes. Said you'd shown him parts of it but you were too busy to follow through. The investors liked his drive." David closed the folder slowly. "So he's not just after my fiancée. He's after my business too." Mr. Ade looked concerned. "You didn't authorize him?" "Not in this lifetime." The betrayal burned deeper. Now it wasn't just personal, it was professional. Chaik had taken his trust, his ideas, and Amara, all in one sweep. That night, David sat in his study with the door locked. His laptop screen glowed as he arranged every piece of proof into a neat, damning collection. Screenshots from Amara's messages. Photos from the restaurant. Audio from a call Chaik had made to him, unknowingly on speaker, where he bragged to someone else about having it all. He placed everything in a folder titled, Truth. The folder wasn't just files, it was the weight of months of doubt finally given shape. Amara knocked once on the door. "David? You've been in there for hours." "Working," he called back. "You should eat." "I'm fine." He heard her footsteps retreat. His heart ached, not from love now but from the knowledge that he'd been planning a future with someone plotting against him. The evidence was ready. The only question was when to use it. Sunday morning, Amara brought breakfast to him in bed, an unusual gesture. "Pancakes?" he asked. "Thought you'd like a treat," she smiled. David studied her. "What's the occasion?" She sat beside him, fingers curling into the bedsheet. "I've been thinking, maybe we should move the wedding date forward. No point in waiting when we know we're right for each other." The words were sweet, but David heard the undertone, urgency. "Why now?" he asked. "I just want us to start our life," she said, eyes soft. "And with the deal you're working on, we'll be set." He gave her a slow smile. "All right. Let's do it." She lit up, leaning in to kiss him. He kissed her back, but in his mind, the plan was already forming. David waited until late Tuesday night to put his next move in place. "I have to travel for work," he told Amara over dinner. 3 days in Port Harcourt. She feigned disappointment. "Again?" Big opportunity. But I'll be back in time for our cake tasting. She nodded, though her eyes flickered, the same look she'd worn the last time he was away. That night, after she fell asleep, David installed a small, discreet camera in the living room. It was angled toward the sofa and front door, the places he suspected most. When morning came, he kissed her goodbye, rolled his suitcase out, and drove 3 streets over. He parked at a friend's compound and set up his laptop. The feed from the camera blinked to life. Now all he had to do was wait. It didn't take long. By late afternoon, Amara returned from shopping, wearing a fitted dress and her hair done in soft waves. She checked herself in the mirror, then opened the door. Chike stepped in, a bottle of wine in hand. They sat on the sofa laughing. 10 minutes later, his arm was around her, her head on his shoulder. Another 15 and they were kissing like they had the house to themselves, because they thought they did. David watched in silence, his hands gripping the table edge. Any lingering hope dissolved. He let the footage play until they left the room together. Then he shut the laptop. The evidence was no longer just suspicion. It was indisputable. David had rehearsed this role 100 times in his head, the doting fiancé eager for forever. This morning he put it on like a perfectly pressed suit. He came down to find Amara already at the dining table, flipping through a bridal magazine, a mug of tea steaming beside her. She looked up with a smile that tried to erase weeks of tension. "You're up early," she said. "Big day," he replied, sliding into the chair opposite her. "What's all this?" "I was thinking." She tapped a page showing a grand wedding reception. "We should set the date sooner. 6 weeks from now. Why wait when we know what we want?" David studied her face, noting the flicker of excitement she couldn't quite hide. 6 weeks. Yes. I've already called the decorator. We can lock in the venue with a deposit this week. And, she leaned closer, voice dropping. I want the world to see how sure we are. He nodded slowly, forcing a smile. All right. 6 weeks it is. Her relief was instant. I knew you'd say yes. That afternoon, she posted a ring photo on Instagram with the caption, "It's happening." Her phone buzzed nonstop with congratulations. She floated through the day like a woman living her dream. David, meanwhile, drafted a message. With joy in our hearts, Amara and I invite you to our introduction on the 28th. He sent it to family and friends, even Chike. Mama Ifioma called within minutes. "NWM, you are sure about this?" "I'm sure," David replied, keeping his voice steady. "Then may God open every closed door for you," she said. That night, as Amara curled against him on the sofa, he thought of the video footage saved on his laptop. He kissed her forehead and whispered, "We'll give them a show." She smiled, oblivious. The best one yet. 2 days later, David's phone buzzed with a message from Nkechi. "We need to talk. In person." They met at a quiet cafe tucked behind a row of boutiques. Rain pattered against the windows as she slid into the seat across from him. "I've kept quiet for too long," she began, stirring her tea though she hadn't added sugar. "I wanted to protect my friend, but you deserve the truth." David leaned forward. "Go on." "She's been seeing Chike for months," Nkechi said plainly. "It didn't start recently. It began after your birthday. I told her to stop. She wouldn't." David's jaw tightened. "Why are you telling me now?" "Because you announced the introduction," Nkechi said. "And she asked me to be her chief bridesmaid. I can't stand beside her knowing this." He exhaled slowly, feeling the truth confirm what he already knew. "There's more, isn't there?" "Yes." Nkechi's voice lowered. "Chike told her he could give her the kind of status you're working for. He even bragged he'd match anything you could offer, except love, of course." David gave a humorless laugh. "He can't match me there." She slid a small flash drive across the table. "Screenshots. A short video. I never wanted to save them, but I couldn't ignore what I saw." He took it, meeting her eyes. "This won't be quiet." "Then let it be loud," Nkechi said. "Better a loud truth than a silent lie." Back home, he added the files to his growing truth folder. That night, he sat across from Amara at dinner, watching her talk about flower arrangements, wondering if she realized her stage was already built, and the script already written. The introduction day arrived with all the pomp Lagos could summon. The event hall gleamed under crystal chandeliers, tables draped in white and gold, a floral arch framing the stage. Guests arrived in a rainbow of geli and agbada, laughter and camera flashes filling the air. David moved through the crowd, greeting relatives, thanking friends. Amara was radiant in champagne lace, coral beads catching the light. She kissed his cheek. "Ready?" "Always," he said. Chaik arrived late, dressed like royalty in crisp Agbada, his smile confident. "My guy," he said, embracing David. "Stay close," David replied with a calm that wasn't calm at all. The MC eventually called everyone to attention. "Let's watch the couple's journey together." The lights dimmed. The screen showed the expected first image, a sweet photo from Tarkwa Bay. Guests murmured their approval. Then without warning the scene shifted. A grainy video filled the screen, Amara in a fitted blue dress, sitting in a quiet restaurant. Across from her, Chaik leaned in, holding her hand. The sound of their laughter was clear. The room went silent. Next came screenshots of text messages. "Miss you already. I told him I had a meeting. You love trouble." Whispers rippled through the hall. Amara's face drained of color. "David, turn it off," she hissed. He kept his eyes on the guest. "This is the truth I asked for in private. I didn't get it. So here it is." A final clip played, living room footage from just days ago. Amara and Chaik on the sofa kissing. Gasps erupted. An older uncle muttered, "Abomination." Chaik stood abruptly. "This is out of context." The projector switched to one last screenshot. "Last night was worth it." Chaik's mouth snapped shut. David stepped forward. "I will not continue with this introduction. Thank you for coming." He walked off the stage, leaving the hall buzzing with shock, the truth hanging in the air like smoke after a fire. Noise hung in the hall like smoke. Aunties argued in whispers. Uncles formed tribunals. Cousins filmed and hid their phones. David stepped outside into white Lagos heat, the kind that does not care about ceremonies. The tinted glass threw back a fractured reflection. Wine-colored senator, a jaw like a locked door, eyes learning not to blink. He walked until the music blurred, stopped at a hawker's umbrella and bought water. The cap cracked like mercy. Half he drank, half he poured over his hands. His phone shivered with messages. "Mama, Mr. Ade, clients, cousins, Nkechi. Are you okay?" Nkechi wrote. Standing he replied. "I'll handle the chatter. People are already spinning." Footsteps neared. Mama Ifeoma's shadow arrived first. She pressed a handkerchief into his palm as if he were still a boy with dusty knees. "NWM. I'm fine." "You're honest," she corrected. "Fine comes later." A squeeze. "You used pain like a blade. Remember to put it down. It still cuts." Then cut free quickly. She tipped her head toward the doors. "Greet the elders. Let them see your face steady so they don't invent another story." Inside, the hall had cooled into aftermath. The DJ stitched soft highlife across murmurs. Amara stood near the stage, ring catching hard light, family circling in alternating scold and embrace. Her makeup had surrendered around the eyes. Chaik was absent. Absence meant hiding or a corner where forgiveness doesn't sit. An elder drew David aside. "You did what men imagine but fear." "I wanted to save a home," he said. "There was no home left." Another uncle warned, "After thunder, people search for lightning in every cloud." David nodded, collected blessings, tolerated advice, accepted discreet cash folded into handshakes, as if heartbreak charged a condolence fee, and tucked everything into the same inner pocket. When he reached Amara, the room thinned. She held herself tall like someone drowning. "So this is who you are. A man tired of half-truths. You humiliated me. You trained me," he said evenly. "You normalized deceit in private. I stopped protecting it." Tears trembled. "I made mistakes but I loved you." "Maybe. But you loved applause more." "Chaik said you'd never choose me," she blurted. "That work would always outrun us." "He said many things to steal what wasn't his. You let him write on our wall. And he's masked." Mama stepped between, quiet thunder. "Give them space," she said, and perfume retreated. Amara's voice fell. "Take me home. We'll lock the doors and talk. We share an address, not a home." She flinched. "Then talk here." "We've been talking for months," he said. "You chose wanting over waiting. There's nothing left to wait for." Chaik reappeared, suited bravado smudged, security hovering like parentheses. Their eyes met, boyhood, team jerseys, late-night suya, unspooled and snapped. Chaik shaped bro please with his mouth. David shook his head. The word hung between them like a sealed envelope. He left with Mama. In the car, silence rode along until she said, "Do not let this harden you." "I won't let it hollow me. At home, eat and sleep. The first night after a tearing is when ghosts offer bargains." He smiled despite himself. "I'll lock the door." News sprinted. WhatsApp groups lit torches. A blog posted, "Groom plays cheating video, calls off introduction." Comments judged from couches. David muted everything. He copied the truth folder to an external drive, then dragged the original to trash. He did not need to watch again. He needed to live again. Mr. Ade called. I was there. I'm sorry you had to do that. It had to be done. And the other matter, Ade said. Chike's submission. I spoke to the partners. We'll reopen yours. They don't like thieves. Relief moved through David like air. Thank you. Bring a revised deck Monday. Let Payne pay rent. He cooked yam and eggs, ate half. Night arrived in pieces. The apartment sounded different. No Amara playlist, no clink of her jewelry dish. Sleep stitched itself in rough patches. Dawn ironed them flat. Sunday he went to church with Mama. He stood, sat, sang. During petitions the priest said, for those ending what was killing them, and something inside unclenched. After Mass a deacon began, God hates divorce, then softened, and he hates deceit. Heal well. Outside, sun on damp concrete, David saw Nkechi approach carefully. How are you? Grateful. Sore. People are revising history already, she sighed. I keep typing and deleting. Let the noise tire itself. Truth can nap. She almost smiled. You're funny in grief. It keeps me standing. She handed him an envelope. Photos from happier months. Do whatever you need. Thank you for telling me when telling cost you. A wound ignored becomes a story we can't carry. She hesitated. If you need a voice that isn't your mother or mirror. I'll call, he said, meaning it and not promising more. Afternoon became inventory. He boxed Amara's scarves and tees and frames that spelled home. He labeled cartons, stacked them by the door and texted, your things are packed. Send an address or time. Hours later, please don't be cruel. He replied with a pickup window for Tuesday. Evening he opened windows so the apartment could exhale. On the balcony he wrote 3 headings in a notebook. Work. Body. People. Under work, rebuild deck, new financing angle, call Hugo, audit pipeline. Under body, run, greens, water, sleep. Under people, Mama, Ade, therapist, friends who don't clap for chaos. The city performed. Generators starting like conversations, a child chanting times tables, a muezzin's call folding into praise. He whispered a small prayer that sounded like thanks and help. Certainty, he decided, was a discipline, not a feeling. Monday he ran at dawn until breath found rhythm, shaved, ironed a fresh shirt and opened a new slide deck. Slide 1. Land, light, leverage. Slide 2. Financing without illusions. He worked until hunger reminded him he was human. He ate, called Hugo, then turned off his phone and kept building. At noon Mama texted Stu. Come for lunch. He went, ate too much, slept on her couch like a forgiven child, woke to her radio sermon about wisdom. She packed containers he didn't refuse. At the door she kissed his forehead. Peace is work, she said. Do your shifts. Back home he printed 1 photo from the envelope, Tarqua Bay, both of them wet laughing, and slid it into a folder labeled archives. The rest he sealed in a box named Done. When the courier came Tuesday for the cartons, David signed and watched the van swallow a former life. The door shut. The flat felt larger, not emptier. Square meters returned from a lease he hadn't known he'd signed. He brewed tea, opened the balcony door and let late light walk across the floor. An unknown number rang. This is Dr. Hassan, a calm voice said. Your mother told me to check on you, not as a doctor. We play chess on Wednesdays. I don't know chess. You know choices, Hassan said. That's half the board. Join us. Maybe I will. He set an alarm named Wake Early, Build Quietly. The city dimmed. In the cooling room, David stood very still and recognized a feeling that surprised him with its simplicity. Relief, small, real, beginning. 3 months later, the city had the same noisy heartbeat, but David moved differently through it. Lighter, sharper, unhurried. The reopened deal had turned into late nights, spreadsheets, site visits, and a revised pitch Mr. Ade called Clean Enough to Eat. Investors who had once flirted with Chike now read the fine print and phoned David directly. Work did not heal him, but it steadied him. Steady felt like grace. One afternoon on site, he stood on a concrete slab in dusty boots as the foreman pointed at rebar and the sun burned questions into his neck. David listened, asked for another soil test and caught himself smiling. Nothing grand, just the quiet satisfaction of being where he was supposed to be, doing what he knew. On Wednesdays he showed up at a small club where Dr. Hassan and retirees argued over chess and cinema. He still didn't know openings, but he liked the ritual, the click of pieces, the way silence could be companionable and not a threat. You calculate too far ahead, Hassan teased. Remember your night can surprise. Like life, David said, and Hassan nodded. He ran most mornings, the city still yawning awake. Danfo drivers swearing allegiance to traffic, Accra oil warming, the sky changing its mind. Some runs carried memories, Amara's laugh, Chike's easy charm, and he let them pass like tired cyclist he had no interest in racing. Other mornings he thought of nothing, which felt like everything. Amara's boxes were gone, her contact muted. Once she sent a message that began, "I'm learning," and ended with, "I hope you're well." He typed, "Be gentle with the truth," and didn't send it. Instead he replied, "I wish you clarity," and left it there. She did not respond, which was a kind of peace. Chike tried to call twice. David let the phone vibrate on the table and eventually slide its insistence into voicemail. A week later, a message arrived through a mutual friend. Chike had lost the pitch, changed gyms, and acquired a humble tone no one quite believed. David wished him distance. Nkechi stayed a careful presence. They did not orbit each other every day, but they shared a lunch once a week at a small garden cafe where birds heckled diners and the jollof tried to outdo itself. They talked about books, haircuts that lied, and budgets that told the truth. Sometimes they didn't talk at all. She had a way of sitting that honored silence without interrogating it. "You look even," she said one afternoon, poking her fork at his plate. "Like a table that doesn't wobble?" "Exactly." He grinned. "You help steady a leg." She shrugged. "You did the carpentry." Mr. Ade pushed the deal to signing, and the partners, cautious, unsmiling, asked David to present the final risk disclosure. He stood in a glass room and spoke plainly, about cash flow, community buy-in, alternative financing, and what failure would cost. When questions tried to turn theatrical, he kept his answers local and human. Later, on the pavement outside, Ade clapped him on the back. "You didn't sell a dream," the older man said. "You sold a plan." They shook hands like men who respected tomorrow. That evening David stopped at a small gallery opening where a friend's sister was showing photographs of Lagos after rain. One frame caught him, a puddle holding the sky, traffic lights reflected like Christmas in dirty water. A woman beside him said, "It's amazing what we step over, isn't it?" "Every day," he replied, only then recognizing Nkechi's friend Ada from a birthday he'd escaped early. Ada laughed softly. "You're the real estate guy who debates about drainage online." "Guilty." They compared ugly sidewalks and beloved roadside grills, then drifted apart in the room's polite tide. He wasn't hunting. He was learning to be found. On a different night, Mama cooked pepper soup and told stories about his father as if they were new episodes instead of reruns that kept getting better. "He courted me with a dictionary," she said, delighted at her own remembering. "He said marriage is learning each other's language and lending words when one of you runs out." David sipped, warmed from throat to chest. "I had no words left," he said. "You have new ones now," Mama answered. "Write carefully." The next week he drove to Tarqua Bay alone at sunrise. The sea was honest, always arriving, always leaving. He walked the sand where a younger version of himself had posed for photos he'd filed under archives. He let the waves touch his ankles like a blessing that did not require performance. A vendor offered coconut. He bought it and drank slow. He pulled out his phone and opened a blank note titled "What I Know." Love is not a stage. Privacy can be kindness, it can also be a hiding place for rot. Evidence proves, it cannot heal. Shame is loud, dignity whispers. I am not what I lost. I am what I build. Begin again gently. He saved it and pocketed the phone. Months later the development broke ground. Journalists snapped photos, community leaders shook hands, a ribbon lost against a breeze and tried to fly. David spoke briefly, no slogans, just promises with timelines. He thanked his team, nodded at Mr. Ade and stepped back so the bulldozers and bricklayers could have the frame. At lunch he wandered into the garden cafe and found nobody he knew. He ordered water and jollof. A minute later, a familiar voice, "Your table wobbles less today." "Nkechi," he said, standing. "Easy," she laughed, "I'm not a foreman." Ada was with her, camera hanging by a strap, a grin that suggested she'd seen another good puddle. They joined him, the waiter fetched more chairs. Conversation moved like a breeze that had learned the room. When Ada left for a quick shoot, Nkechi tilted her head. "You think you might?" "I think I might be ready to think," he said, smiling at the grammar. "Good." He paid, walked them to the gate, and watched sunlight balance on the rims of parked cars like spare halos. That evening he returned to the site to watch workers pack up. A foreman raised a hand. "Oga, tomorrow we pour by 8. "I'll bring puff puff," David said. Driving home, he took a longer route, the kind that passes old versions of yourself and lets them wave. He parked, climbed the stairs, and opened his door to a room that felt earned. On the balcony, the city rehearsed its nightly orchestra, generators, radios, bargaining, laughter. He brewed tea, texted Mama a photo of the first trench, and set out the chessboard Dr. Hassan had insisted he borrow. He did not yet know how to win, but he understood how to move with intention. The phone buzzed, a calendar reminder, night practice with Hassan. He chuckled at the title, then opened his window wider. When night finally shouldered the day aside, David stood in the doorway and breathed in the warm dark. He didn't feel triumphant. He felt steady. He felt present. He felt, miraculously, simply, okay. A cancelled flight had once turned him back toward betrayal. Now his life tilted forward, past spectacle, past noise, toward work, kindness, and rooms where truth could sit comfortably. He lifted his mug to the quiet. To beginnings, he said. And for the first time in a long time, the word didn't sound like a brave face. It sounded true. Liked it? Thumbs up, subscribe, and join the AfriHeart fam. Your support fuels our stories. Until next time.